we're really talking about two different types of screenplays here. There's the screenplay that gets bought, and then the screenplay that gets made.
This episode is brought to you by Bulletproof Script Coverage, where screenwriters go to get their scripts read by top Hollywood professionals. Learn more at covermyscreenplay.com. I'd like to welcome to the show Jeff Schechter, man. How you doing, my friend?
I'm great. So good to talk to you.
Yeah, man. We've been playing Skype tag for quite some time, so I do appreciate it.
I know. Well, it's apparently between the two of us, you're the busy one. I'm sitting here like this for months going, when's Alex going to call?
Yes, I'm sure
like,
that's exactly.
Schechter.
I've
got a life.
Obviously, that's what I picture all my guests doing. No, I'm joking. No, but when we logged on to Skype, we're like, brothers from another mother, because you've got all this amazing geek stuff in the background for people listening. Yeah. He's got Star Wars statues and Marvel statues everywhere, and it's just it's nice. It's nice to see that as well. So before we get into it, how did you get into the business?
Well, it was kind of one of those things where I always knew I wanted to be a writer. Mm-hmm. I mean, which was really, I've got 4 adult kids, and they've asked me, like, when did I know what I wanted to do? Because, they're all in various phases of, some have figured out exactly what they want to do, some haven't. And I was like, I don't know. It's like, I don't remember a time when I didn't want to be a writer and didn't want to write for television. And, so it was sort of just like everything I did, starting even in junior high school, going into high school. I was writing stuff. I was writing my own plays. I was directing them. I was making short movies, with my friends in Brooklyn. And then ultimately came time to go to college. I just knew I was going to go to film school. I applied to State University of New York College at Purchase, so SUNY Purchase. Mm-hmm. Where had back then, that was the late 70s. There were the people who came out of Purchase were people like Stanley Tucci and Ving Rhames. Wesley Snipes was there for a while, in the acting world. Directing, I think Hal Hartley came out of SUNY Purchase. Charles Lane, Parker Posey was there. So there was a sort of an up and coming kind of vibe to the school. And just went through film school there, got out, had a great mentor at school who helped get me into editing. And so I worked in editing for a couple of years in New York while still writing screenplays, and then just moved to LA. I read William Goldman's book, Adventures in the Screen Trade.
Great book.
Right? It's a great book. It's and he had a chapter, the early parts of the book, before he started talking about his specific movies, the early parts of the book had chapters are broken up like, producers, directors, actors, right? And then there's a chapter that was called, LA. And the chapter begins, and I'm paraphrasing imperfectly, but something like, I find Los Angeles to be a dangerous and potentially very harmful place in which to live. And I suggest that anyone seriously considering a career as a screenwriter move there as soon as possible. So, 23 or 24-year-old me reads that and like, okay.
Where's my ticket? Where's my ticket?
Yeah. Really, seriously. Everything I had into a Buick LeSabre and drove cross country.
Before I got here, I've been here about 12 years, and I lived on the East Coast as well. And friends here were like, the only thing you'll ever regret about moving to LA is you didn't do it sooner. And it's true. Once I got here, I completely understood what they were saying.
It's an industry town, It's
the whole town was built. Like I always say, you could take the film industry out of New York, and New York's still New York. You take the film industry out of LA, it's not the whole infrastructure is built around the industry.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
It's like if you want to go into auto manufacturing, you probably still have to go to Detroit.
Right. Or if you're imagine if Silicon Valley left San Fran.
Right.
The whole town would just collapse on itself.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, that would be the time. Keep your eye on that, because that's the time to buy in Palo Alto. Yes,
exactly. Buy as much real estate as you possibly can.
Buyer's market, my friend.
At that point of the game. All right. So before we get into your awesome book, I need to ask you a very serious question. Bloodsport 2.
Yes.
Bloodsport 2.
The Citizen Kane of the Bloodsport franchise.
Obviously. I actually am not only a huge fan of Bloodsport 1, because I'm from the 80s, though I'm sure if I watched it again right now, I would not think it was the best movie ever made at the time. So it lives in my mind as what it was when I saw it. And when I saw that you wrote the sequel to that, because Bloodsport 1 was it was fairly big hit at the time.
It was a big hit.
And then and then they call you up and go, and they call it
Van Damme. I mean, it was it's one of those cult classics. I mean, I haven't watched it in I don't know, 25 years, something like that. But it's definitely one of the. I mean, I still talk to the producer Mark DeSalle, who produced the movie. I don't think he directed it. He directed Kickboxer, but no, somebody else directed Bloodsport 1. Anyway, and he's still like, yeah, Bloodsport. Bloodsport's still paying the bills.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
It's one of those things.
And now, how did you get the call? Because that's a pretty big first. Because I saw it was like one of your first writing credits, right?
That was the first thing. That was the first like WGA.
How'd you get that? How'd you get that?
It's a crazy story. I had an agent at that time who, I was studying karate. I was a black belt in Taekwondo back then, and I guess technically I'm still a black belt. Though I could demonstrate one kick for you, but then you have to call 911 right afterwards.
Yes. In your mind, you're a black belt still.
Ooh, wait, let me do it again. Yeah, that was a good one. Okay, so I was a black belt, and I had just quit my regular job. I had this was 89, I want to say. So maybe just going into 90, and I'd gotten out to LA in 84. So I was out here 6 years and writing a bunch of scripts, and finally got a good agent and some good specs features. And then I was working like full time at something. I was managing the karate studio for a while, and then I was doing industrial videos, and and then I was working for a sales company. I was doing these industrial videos and sales training, and the guy that I worked for had all these interesting business theories that were actually don't get no hate mail, please, but it was actually stuff that was distilled down from L. Ron Hubbard, who had a lot of business theories besides his Scientology stuff, right? He was big into business organization. I mean, as you can tell,
obviously, because Scientology is a very powerful organization financially.
Right. Yeah, it's a super tightly run organization, right? So, anyways, so one of his principles that he had was that if you do something part-time, you get part-time results. If you want full-time results, you should do it full-time. So I felt that I had achieved as I was a successful part-time writer as I could possibly be. I had an agent. I was kind of optioning scripts for $1 or $10. I was able to go on meetings every once in a while, right? So I felt like for doing it part-time, I'm getting my part-time results. So I quit the job doing these industrial videos and decided to dedicate 6 months to nothing but writing. So I gave them 2 weeks notice. The guy says, "Hey, look, we need some more time for this. So you can give me a month." I said, "Yeah, sure." Right. So that was like around Thanksgiving. So I give him the month, and in that first month, I write a script. I'm going, this is amazing. I knew I could support myself for 6 months, without having to find another full-time job. I'm going to go, I'm going to support myself for 6 months, and at this rate, I can write a script a month, and I'm going to be a big.
That's the way it works. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, that's the way it works. Right. So wrote that first script in that first month. Had my last day at work, and then right around that same time, started getting involved in Orthodox Judaism because I was conservative Jewish, but started getting involved in Orthodox Judaism. I spent the next 6 months just learning about Judaism. I didn't write anything.
You were procrastinating as a writer. What a shocking.
I was in religious procrastination mode. It was great.
So instead of Netflix, you went down the Orthodox Jewish route. Okay, fine.
At least I was able to say, yes, I'm procrastinating, but it's because God wants me to.
Exactly.
So anyway, so the 6 months, so 5 months goes by. I've now almost completely depleted my account. And I'm like, okay, I'm just going to have to go get another part-time job, right? Which I wasn't worried about. I was single, living on my own. It wasn't
ramen, ramen noodles.
I wasn't freaking out about it or anything. So anyway, so my grandmother at that time. Did you want the whole story?
I mean, you can get to Bloodsport whenever you want.
I'd always been. Okay, I'm going to get there, but it's just that you asked. So.
No problem.
So I hope you've learned your lesson about asking me any question.
Yes, fair enough. Fair enough. I'm seeing the pattern, sir.
Okay, I've lost track of where we were. Okay, let me start again.
Grandma.
So anyway, so yeah, grandma. So grandma had always threatened to take me on a trip. She was not well enough to travel. She says, okay, here's a small bucket of money. Why don't you go on a trip? So I said, okay, I'll take I had friends in England, friends in Sweden. Okay, so I'll go to England for a week, Sweden for a week, and then I'll go to Israel for 2 weeks, and then I'll come back, find a job, and keep pursuing this as a part-time thing. I do my 1 week in England, and I literally am walking through the apartment door of my friends in Sweden when their phone is ringing. Right now, this is pre-cell phone, pre-email.
Yeah.
Right, so their phone is ringing, and it's like I apologize in advance to your Swedish viewers, but guten Tag or whatever the hell they say in Sweden when they answer. They go, yeah, hold on 1 second, and they hand me the phone. They go, it's your agent.
What? They tracked you down.
Because I gave her my itinerary. She tracked me down, and she said, there's an open writing assignment for Bloodsport II. The producer had read one of my spec screenplays, which was sort of a cop action kind of screenplay. And he would like to meet you to see if there's some fit for Bloodsport 2. I'm like, I'm just starting the second week of a 1 month trip. Will this job be available when I get back in 3 weeks? She said no. I went, okay. So I said, I will come back in a couple of days. Right. So I took literally whatever little money I had left from the trip and whatever money I had in the bank and bought the only ticket I could from Sweden on short notice, which was a one-way business class ticket.
At least you went in style.
Oh my God. Well, yeah. If we're going to go out big. So got back to LA and met a couple of days later and just said, there's no way I'm not going to get this job. There's no way. I have to get this job. It's like I've spent more than the money I actually even had. So I go to meet the guy, and my Brooklyn accent is behaving itself well at the moment. But the guy I met with, great guy named Mark DeSalle, he's from New Jersey. So, and he has not gone through the pains that I have to get rid of the accent. So I sit down in the office and goes, yeah, it's really nice to meet you. I'm going, hey, it's nice to meet you too. My accent starts coming out. And we're talking and we're joking, and we just immediately hit it off. It was just like one of those things where we just really clicked, right? And two guys from back east, and some backgrounds and stuff. And so all throughout the meeting, he's going, yeah, this is great. I really loved your script, but I gotta talk to some other writers. And I'm like leaning in. I go, no, there are no other writers. Okay? And this happens like 3 or 4 times throughout the meeting. Yeah, no, this is fantastic. But I'm still talking to other writers. No, there are no other writers. And then so the meeting finishes. I'm feeling really good about it. But then I race over to the karate studio that I was been training at, and because I had helped the master at the studio write some karate books, which is I think also helped with the Bloodsport, obviously. And there was some picture in one of the books of like me doing this like 12 o'clock side kick back when I could lift my leg over my head, not by force.
Right.
Yeah. I know, with a couple of guys helping me. And I literally wrote in the gap between my bottom leg and my top leg, there are no other writers, and ran it back to his office and left it for him with his assistant.
That's amazing.
And got the job the next day.
That's awesome. That's an awesome story.
It was a combination of,
serendipity.
Yes, serendipity, 2 boys from back east. But I think the if I could presume to make a learning moment out of that incredibly long, potentially boring story, it's that I was just willing to do whatever it took to do it. I mean, literally, like, oh, I got to buy a $3,000 ticket with money I don't have to get back to LA. Well, this is what I want to do. This is what I got to do, right? So it played it into this that you got to be willing to commit. You got to, a lot of people have dreams, and a lot of people have goals, and there's a difference between a dream and a goal. Right. So, it wasn't my dream to be a writer. I had a goal of being a writer, and if this is what you have to do, that's what you have to do, and you have to just suck it up and, and put in.
Take the risk because it was a risk. Like, in general, it's a massive risk. So you had no guarantee that you were going to do it. And you were like, look, I'm going to lose the rest of my European vacation. And, and then now I'm also going to have to spend $3,000 I don't have for the risk. Also, it was a different time. It was a different time, and I wouldn't do that today.
Right. No, right. And I was going to say that it's not like I was there, I was what, 28, 29, single, my monthly expenses were maybe $1,200 a month. It's like, it wasn't such a thing. Like now, it's like if I was on a European vacation, a 1 month European vacation with my wife and my kids, and I get the phone call, it's like, I'm not saying, honey, I'm going to go back to LA. You stay here.
Yeah. I mean, unless it's Kevin Feige, and then.
Right. Then it's right. That's a much different situation. We were on a cruise, last summer, and there was a showrunner position had opened up on a TV show, and I had to talk to the show creator, and it's a guy I knew. I didn't get the job, but it's because I'm in the middle of the Baltic Sea or wherever the hell we were, trying to do a Skype call with international
sure timing,
and he couldn't hear me, I couldn't hear him. Suffice it to say, I didn't get the job. I did not jump off the ship, swim to shore, and take a plane back for that meeting. It wasn't.
So let's get to your book, because one of the reasons I wanted to have you on the show was in the screenwriting space of screenwriting books, yours definitely sticks out by its title. My story can beat up your story, and it's a fairly violent title, sir. It's
I'm a man on the edge.
You're obviously, sir. Obviously, all that karate is seeped into your screenwriting from your Bloodsport days,
just welling up.
So, why did you write? First of all, why did you call it that? And secondly, why did you write this? What caused you to write it? Because there's a lot of screenwriters in Hollywood. There's a lot of people who worked in television. I mean, there's thousands of them, but very few actually decide to sit down and write about the craft or try to pay it forward in whatever they've learned along their journey. Right.
It's a great question. The desire to write the book came from I'm a bit of a gearhead, like a bit of a science, I don't want to say science background. I think that's giving myself too much credit, but it's certainly a huge interest as an amateur in science and physics and how things work. And, my favorite fondest memories when I was a kid was getting, some broken piece of electronics and attacking it with, a screwdriver and just dismantling it and trying to understand how it works. So I've always was fascinated with how do stories work? Just how do I reverse engineer a story? And I had a friend, a guy named Gil Evans, who's also a writer, and he and I would have these conversations back and forth. How about this? How about this? Oh, somebody has this theory. Oh, there's this 7-act structure. Oh, it's a 6-act structure. Oh, there's 22 steps. Oh, there's the so we would just go back and forth and and try to figure out sort of the structure of stories. And I think the biggest aha moment I had was Bloodsport II. All roads lead back to Bloodsport II.
Obviously.
That I said, okay, well, what I want to, when I'm going to structure Bloodsport II, let me take 2 movies, get them from Blockbuster, put them in my, handy dandy VHS player, and just do like bullet points, plot points, blah, 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 blah. So I did 48 Hours and I did Lethal Weapon. Right. So I write it down. I wish I had those papers. It was kind of fascinating. So I wrote down blah, 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 plot points, 48 Hours. And again, I had 44 plot points. I went, oh, that's interesting. Then I did Lethal Weapon, blah, 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 44 plot points. I went, whoa, that was interesting, right? The 44 plot points. And then I said, well, can I subdivide those? Was there a sort of a commonality on how those were laid out, right? So I started saying, oh, well, the first section is kind of this, and the second is kind of a 4-act structure with a dividing point. So things started making themselves known to me, and then I would bounce it off, my friend Gil, and he'd be like, "Oh, this is really interesting because I just read this book called The Hero Within from Carol Pearson that talks about the archetypes that go into storytelling." And then I started examining films with these from the lens of these archetypes. It's like orphan, wanderer, warrior, and martyr, and it laid out, on those films. And then I started breaking down other movies, and I had 43 plot points, 47 plot. It was all in and around 44. So I started thinking, geez, I'm really onto something here. So just for my own writing, for my own benefit, I just tried to codify it in some way, and that ultimately led to me. I was kind of dabbling in programming at the time, and by programming I just mean like database programming, using Microsoft Access. And I said, well, let me see if I can create for myself a little template that I could use for story structure with Microsoft Access, just kind of for my own, streamline my own process. So I did it, and we had this, the 4 archetypes and the 44 plot points, and what's the nature of those first 12 plot points, and the reversals that happen after the end of Act 1, and the central question that comes up, and just took everything that I had learned by myself and in conversation with my friend Gil, and developed this kind of like interactive database that was sort of fill in the blanks, and you have a well structured story, because the structure wasn't just working for Lethal Weapon and Bloodsport 2 and 48 Hours. It was working for Star Wars, and it was working for, I was writing, kids movies at the time. I was working for Dennis the Menace 2, and, and the Wizard of Oz. And, it seemed to just, it started feeling, if I can, in my spirit of self-aggrandizement, it started feeling like I might have accidentally stumbled onto like the unified field theory of story structure.
Okay.
And so I developed this piece of software for my own use, and then moved to Canada, going towards the end of the 90s. And because of the whole immigration thing, I couldn't work for the first 9 months for Canadian companies. So I'm sitting around going, geez, what am I going to do? I still had some contracts from the States. I was writing a picture for Universal. And I was like, well, what do I do with all my extra time while I'm waiting to qualify for Canadian work permits? I said, well, I had the software. Let me figure out how to distribute it. Right. So, so that became like my side project. I was going to market this story structure software. But, and as any good piece of software, comes with an instruction manual. So I had to now write down the instructions for it, which meant that I had to start explaining the theory behind the instructions. And so suddenly I had this instruction manual, which was like 50% of a book on screenwriting. So ultimately, about 10 years later or so, I was thinking, I should just turn this into a book, because everybody who got the software loved it, and everybody who would just even read the instruction manual would be like, wow, this is cool. You should make this into a book. Mm-hmm. So it was kind of, it started from my own, lazy ass, I don't want to think too much when it comes time to work. So I went from that to, well, here's a structure I can use for myself, into, something I could sell to others and then they turned into a book as well.
So now you have the story structure. You have this. You've broken the unified theory, the field of theory. Right? You've gone to black matter of story, essentially. I am also an amateur science geek as well, a little bit. So it's I understand. But so you started. I'm sure you've read a handful of screenplays in your day. So you've probably read a bunch. What are the most common mistakes you see in screenplays, and specifically from first-time writers, but also from even experienced writers, people, just writers in general? Because, look, not everyone hits it out of the park every time.
Yeah, for sure. No, nobody does. I think the biggest mistakes that it's hard to say it in a way that's not offensive.
Be offensive. It's okay.
Like like if a bad ear for dialogue, right, or their ideas, are not commercial, or to be harsh, they just suck, right? That's not a mistake. That's just
taste.
It may not even be taste. It's just you've hit the wall on whatever your natural ability is. If somebody said, what's the biggest mistake you see with amateur mathematicians, and I'd be like, well, my inability to do any sort of high level math is not a mistake. It's a limitation, right? So stuff that can't be learned, you kind of just stuck with. So taking that out, I would say, bad characters or, bad dialogue. I mean, everything can be improved, but, you have to cross that threshold into something unique and different. But the kind of the unifying mistake that I see a lot is bad structure. Because part of what my study on the subject has shown me is that we are wired, we have a biological imperative for storytelling. And stories that are told in a way that our brains are physically constructed to understand have a deeper resonance to us than stories that try to, like if our brain has circular story receptors and somebody's writing, plot points that are squares, they're not going to get into our story receptors. And I mean, we've all had that experience. You see a movie or a TV show, you go, I don't know, something about that really didn't sit right, where I didn't like that. I'm not even sure I can even enunciate why I didn't like it. I could tell you why. It's because the structure, some aspect of the story was trying to force its way into your brain, and it blew everything up on the way in. And then your brain starts trying to churn and understand what the hell was that all about, and it just leaves you with a very unsatisfying story experience. So the biggest mistake I see is people just don't understand structure well enough. And structure doesn't have to mean formula, right? I haven't done this exercise yet. I mean, I was crazy about the movie Parasite, but I can assure you that if I sat down and ran it through, my understanding of structure and the whole "my story can beat up your story" approach to storytelling, it'll fall out in line. So, and nobody can accuse Parasite of being like a formulaic movie in any way. So what structure does is it gives you a wrapper around which you can let your creativity and your innovation and your personal flair for storytelling shine. Right? But you don't have to reinvent structure every time you sit down to write a screenplay.
It's I always use the analogy of a house being built. It's the frame. So houses are going to be houses. You can't build the foundation on top of the roof. That's just not, you need, exactly. There is a basis of how you build that house, and it's always going to be the same no matter what you do. There's a foundation, there's walls, there's a door, there's a roof. Right. Period. Right. What you do inside of that is where the magic happens. That's where the architect comes into play. That's where you could do other things within it. But those basic building blocks cannot be adjusted because that's just the way it is. You can try to put the foundation on top of the roof. Let me know how that works out. And then you get, some other movies that we will remain nameless, that try to change the structure. And you're very right. Like you watch, you watch a film like The Room, and you watch that, and obviously that movie is so far beyond any sort of the foundation is on top of the roof on a film like that. And also the dressings inside are all thrown around and everything, so it's upside down. But he's transcended. He's walked into the multiverse. He is now in another dimension and has now become entertaining on a completely different level
exactly.
for many people, and that's very rare.
Right. Right. Well, it's interesting. I mean, it's the analogy with the foundation and the roof and everything is a good analogy, because even like in my book, like going back to those 44 plot points, it's the first 12 make up Act 1.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the ones that get really specific about. You meet the hero, villain, or stakes character.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very specific flavor. After you get past those first 12, like the remaining 32 are much more generalized. It's like 7 pairs of yes/no reversals, and I don't say in this yes/no reversal the stakes. The stakes for the tertiary characters increased by 14%. It's like I don't drill into it, because that's mind numbing, right? And unhelpful. But the first 12 are super important. That's the foundation of the house, and then and still even within that, it still grows. And I should just add, that the my approach to storytelling is not like, because as I would hear a lot, it's like, oh, so every movie it follows
on page 16 this happens, on page 18 that happens.
Yeah, I try not to get that specific, but it gets pretty specific, right? So no, not there are a ton of really good movies out there that probably have nothing to do with my system at all. So my and this is, I know this is indie film hustle,
mm-hmm.
right? So indie films can be a little bit more freewheeling, and experimental than what I'm talking about. My goal had been to be a Hollywood hack from day one.
Mm-hmm.
So so what I'm describing is a very specific. Here's how commercial movies work, and it's sort of a chicken and egg type of thing. Am I saying that all good movies or all well-structured movies follow my system? No, probably not. Do all movies that follow my system end up with good structures? 100%.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's now you're stuck with your dialogue and your characters
and theme and plot and all that.
At least we took the biggest stumbling block off the table, which is structure.
There was one movie I saw years ago, and I haven't seen it since, because it was I found it to be just absolutely horrible, which was, but it was a huge monster hit, which was Twilight, the original Twilight film. When it came out, it was such a big hit. I just needed to go see it, and I watched it, and I found it to be horrendous. And because the main villain didn't show up until 20 minutes before the movie ended. Like, there was no even conversation about this guy until then. It was all about the love, the back and forth pining. And then I understand why it made so much money, because the girls that went to go see it, they wanted to do that. And it fed into that demographic perfectly. Right. But the villain, the villain didn't show up. I'm like, literally 20 minutes to the end, he showed up. I'm like, am I the only one who sees this? Like, there was no antagonist for 80% of the movie. So I couldn't relate to it. So that rewiring thing that you were saying, it was like short circuiting my mind, was that. And I just kept seeing, like, why does everyone like it? And I'm like, okay, not everyone, but why was it such a big hit?
That's right. That's kind of like there's a 2-part thing with that, which is that like when doing my analysis of movies, I never do sequels or movies derived from pre-existing material,
mm-hmm.
because you can't learn anything, because they have such a built-in audience. Right?
Correct. And there was a Twilight books, yeah.
Yeah, if George Lucas, released, I guess the Star Wars
was original.
Franchise, is getting a little bit, long in the tooth, at least, as far as critical success, but maybe not, I don't know. Mm-hmm. But if another Star Wars movie came out, it's going to make a certain guaranteed amount of money, no matter how bad it is. And I don't even, it's got a built-in audience. So I find, for educational purposes, you want to, you can learn a lot more from analyzing Toy Story than you can from analyzing Toy Story 4.
Right.
Which you can argue, Toy Story 4 may have, for all I know, maybe made more money than Toy Story 1.
It did.
So right. So you say, oh well, therefore let me learn from Toy Story 4. No, it's got a 30-year built-in audience, right? It's like
God, is it that long? Jesus, it is that.
I know.
It's close to that.
It was 95, I think.
Yeah,
right?
so like 25 years. Jesus.
Yeah. So it's like, so you can't learn anything from Toy Story 4. It's like,
but Wall-E, you can.
Yes, exactly correct, right? So something like that, right? WALL-E 2, you wouldn't be able to learn as much from.
I don't think I wouldn't see WALL-E 2, but yes, I would probably go see WALL-E 2.
The Revenge.
Yeah, WALL-E 2, the Electric Boogaloo.
So a lot of the whenever I would, that was like another big not innovation but big aha moment for me was looking at I'd go through Internet Movie Database and look at the top 50 grossing movies of all time, but parse the list. So I took out sequels, I took out reboots, I took out anything that had any sort of brand awareness, and said now these and those top 50 of all time might have been distilled from the top 300 movies of all time based on box office, because I had to get down to the 50 original movies, the Liar Liars and the Star Wars.
The original Star Wars. So let me ask you a question. So I always love asking about this because Avatar. Mm-hmm. Avatar was an original concept, original world, no pre-existing, fairly risky film to put out. And I argue still that there's only probably one man on the planet who would have had that opportunity. I don't think they're giving Spielberg $500 million to design and even or Scorsese or any of these guys. So there's very few, very, very short list. But that movie obviously was the biggest movie of all time. Arguably still is, based on inflation and all that kind of good stuff. Mm-hmm. Well, if you want to go back, Gone with the Wind was really the biggest one. It's Snow White. It's Snow White. Yeah, and those kind of still did. But arguably speaking, it's one of the biggest cultural hits of all time.
Yeah, it was number one for many years.
Exactly. What was it about that story, which it did get nominated for Best Screenplay and Best Picture, but the screenwriting community, I remember, just destroyed it because it's Fern Gully, it's Dances with Wolves, it's this and that. Like they just go back and I'm like, yeah, it is Fern Gully. Yeah, it is Dances with Wolves. I mean, it is Dances with Wolves. But a much cooler version of Dances with Wolves.
Right. You ever see the analysis, the side-by-side analysis of Star Wars and Wizard of Oz?
No, I haven't.
Oh, it's fascinating. Star Wars is Wizard of Oz.
Well, it's a hero's journey. It's basically
exactly.
It's the hero's journey. My favorite is my favorite is one of the biggest franchises in movie history, Fast and Furious. What's that? That's just Point Break. It's Point Break. It's the literal story. Instead of surfers, they're race car drivers. Right. It's essentially the exact same story. Anyone listening, please go online and look it up. Point Break is the original Fast and Furious.
One of my first agents, infamously said this to me, when I asked his advice about, what should I be writing? He goes, I don't care. Just make it derivative and make it quick.
Wow. All right. So back to the original question, Avatar. What was about that film specifically that you feel, that story that caught on, or what going through your system? What is it?
Yeah, I think it was first off, structurally perfect, character's journey perfect. It hits, undeserved misfortune, orphan, wanderer, warrior, martyr. On a huge canvas. It was a cultural event, which you can't ever
quantify.
Predict.
Yeah.
Right. Look, it's an imperfect analogy, but you can talk about the Abyss.
I love the Abyss. I love the Abyss.
Yeah, I like the Abyss a lot. The character stuff. But same filmmaker, took us to another world we've never seen before. Also fantastical creatures, and didn't do a fraction of the business of
different time too, different time period.
Yeah, different time. But it was, within 5, 6, 7 years of of each other.
No, it's not. That was in 1990, and Avatar came out in like 2000 and something.
This was 1990.
Yeah, because it was during my time at the video store. So yes, I remember when it came out. There's a short window of time. 87 to 93, I'm pretty much unstoppable with trivia, movie trivia. That's my sweet spot. I can knock it out there.
So what year was Avatar again?
Avatar was, if I'm not mistaken, was either because Titanic was 97 or 90. Yeah, it was 97. Matrix was 99. So Avatar was, I think, 2007. It was 2007. About 2007, 2008, around there, or a little less. All right, hold on.
All right.
while we're speaking, continue speaking, and I'll look it up.
So anyway, yeah. So it was just it was such a complete journey into this fantastical world, and part of it also was a little bit of a dog and pony show. It's like we'd never seen creatures in that, like that ever portrayed before, as well as they were.
So and it was 2009. So it was all right. It was around there. So it's 2009. So, but the thing was with Avatar, because a lot of people are like, oh, it's paint by numbers. It's the story's rehashed, it's Dances with Wolves and all this kind of stuff. But the big thing that made that story go is that and I saw it when I was watching, it was like he hit every point perfectly. He basically made the perfect apple pie. It's a recipe that we all know, but he hit everything perfectly. And then you add on the spectacle and the technology and the event and all that stuff. And then it's an unbeatable combination.
Yeah. It doesn't, things don't have to be,
complex,
brand spanking new. Yeah. It's not, it ain't rocket science, no, you know what I mean? It's like, Avatar was derivative. Nobody's ever claimed that James Cameron was the most brilliant, dialogue writer, in the world. He gets characters really well. He, directs them, effectively. Dialogue-wise, Quentin Tarantino is better than James Cameron.
Sure.
But Cameron knows how to paint on a very big canvas, and he hits all the beats. It's he made it derivative and he made it quick. It's funny. I'm sure you've seen the movie The Big Short.
Of course, right? I love that movie.
It was this great. Was it Gordon Ramsay? I'm trying to remember. Who was the chef? No, it was what was his name? He just died. Very sad.
I forgot. Yeah, I think I remember. I forgot who the chef is, but yeah, continue.
Yeah, but anyway, he's explaining tranches of short selling, right? He says he goes, here's fish. I bought it for the weekend crowd, but I have some left over. It didn't sell, so I can't sell it anymore as fresh fish. But I cut it up and I put it into the stew, and now it's a whole brand new thing, right? So so derivative storytelling. It's like, okay, I'm taking some old fish, but I'm putting it into a brand new stew.
That's storytelling. But that's storytelling from the Epic of Gilgamesh. I mean, it's like.
Well, that's the whole Laja Segre. There are only 36 dramatic situations, right? So you go, okay, that's fine.
Yeah, and I think a lot of screenwriters and filmmakers in general, they all get caught up with like, I need to create the brand new thing. I got to create the new thing, and I got to create something that's never been written before. And the thing is that everything's been written in one way, shape, or form. All you could do is put a new twist on it or combine certain elements to make it fresh and new. And even if you look at Pulp Fiction, which is arguably one of the more original films created in recent history. If you look at it and you put it up against the hero's journey and the points that lays out, it hits. But what was brilliant about that is he just changed the timeline, but the things still hit, which is the genius behind that film. Like it's beyond.
I know my favorite examples from Pulp Fiction, as far as like how does it follow the hero's journey, is towards the end of Act 2, there's the death and resurrection moment, death and rebirth,
Yeah, Uma. Yeah, Uma.
No,
Is
no,
it the
yeah,
Uma?
yeah. Well, that was part of it, but it's Vincent Vega gets machine gunned,
Right.
right, in the
That's
bathroom.
right.
So, right, and then the next scene, he's alive again because it was just that the timeline was, was the conceit of the movie, was playing with the timeline.
And that was
right?
the brilliance, but that's the brilliance of that film.
That's the brilliance of it, right? That's what I'm saying. People who feel like, oh, I can't follow the structure, I'll make it formulaic. I go, yeah, because in your formulaic hack, you don't know how to do it better. Hence my story can beat up your story. I'm just a little too antagonistic with some of that stuff. I should be nicer.
So talking
Blake
about,
Snyder, Blake Snyder was a much nicer person.
Yes, he was. Save it.
I'm serious. It's like
just save the cat. Just save the cat. Don't beat up the story. Just save the cat.
Right. The cat, and he was a sweet guy, So,
all right. So we're talking about structure, but I found that a lot of times I just saw a movie the other day that the hero, I couldn't identify with him. There wasn't anything really interesting about him. And I'm watching this cop drama and I'm just going, and he's a great actor and and I love him and the cast is fantastic. And the production value is great, but 21 Bridges, the one with Chadwick, Chadwick, Black Panther. And I'm watching it and I'm like, it's just so bland. Like his character had no real depth. There was no history to it. He was just like this. There was some, I think that the screenwriter tried to do something there with his dad and like he's a cop killer. I mean, he's a killer of cop killers as a cop and all this, but it wasn't anything good. What advice do you have for making, for constructing a good hero? What are some tips?
Well, you gotta go back to the sources. You gotta look at the hero's journey. It's like, there are a couple of like super handy kind of like
Swiss Army, yeah, it's like Swiss Army knife kind of stuff.
It's right, the Swiss Army knife. It's like I always ask these questions when I'm writing or trying to sort of coach people with writing. So you start off simply. You go, what is your hero wrong about? At the start of the movie that they're going to become right about, at the end. Your hero's got to be the best at something, right? That's why, you read it, it's sadly like you read a lot of screenplays or stories, written by people and, the hero's this like schlub, he's the loser, he's the joke at the office, he can't do anything right. You go, I get it. I know why you're trying to tell that story, but you're not giving the audience an into the character. If the guy's such a loser, he's not good at anything, then you're not
interested.
You're not interested. What do you want him to accomplish, right? So it's like, and then you have to put the hero through the paces of the journey. You got to make it really clear, by the end of Act 1, what's your hero's, I think it was Sid Field used to refer to it as like professional, personal, and private, right? It's a professional goal, right? What's his personal goal? What's his private goal, right? So Luke, professional goal is, by the end of Act 1, professional goal is he wants to destroy the Death Star, right? Right. The personal goal is save the princess. Private goal is he wants to become a Jedi like his father. Right. And the way you can and the way you think about that is when looking at your hero and your main character, you're saying the professional goal is what's the thing that means the most to the most people that your hero is involved in. Right. Then the personal goal is what's the thing that means the most to the hero and a couple of his or her closest associates, right? Allies or friends or family, right? And then the private goal is what's the thing that means the most to the hero, right? So it's just sort of a holistic way of looking at your hero's full life. And like going back to your very good question about like what are some of the big mistakes you see? You say sometimes, in a poorly told story, the hero only has a professional goal, right? Or or the hero's not gives up on the private goal too soon, or the private goal becomes insignificant, right? Because that's how you know. That's the other problem, that I often see a lot in movies is you've all seen it. You watch a movie and go, oh, the movie's over, and you go, oh no, wait a minute, it's still going on. Oh, it's still going on, right? It's like the people don't know when to finish telling the story. Your movie is over when you've taken that, go back to Star Wars. Will Luke destroy the Death Star, save the princess, and become a Jedi like his father? When you answer each of those three questions, that's when your movie's over, right? So it's and then the whole film is dedicated to answering those questions, yes or no. It's like he goes to Mos Eisley with Obi-Wan, so that's yes. By going to Mos Eisley, he will be helping to destroy the Death Star. He will be hoping to save the princess, and he is taking a step closer to being a Jedi like his father. But they get stopped by stormtroopers, so now it's all a no. And then it's a yes. And so that's why, it's like, so then you start playing the reversals, but you got to know the question. You got to know the question that's driving your hero.
So did you watch Office Space?
Not much. The movie?
Yeah.
Yeah. I saw it a long time ago, and then saw bits and pieces of it more recently. Okay.
All right. Now I was going to wonder. I was going to have you kind of break that character, the main character, because he was a schlub. But then I was like, as we're talking, I'm like, well, what is his professional goal? Well, his professional goal wanted to do this, and his personal goal he wanted to get with Jennifer Aniston, and his private goal was to do. So he's like, okay, you start thinking about what it's.
But some movies, some movies just don't work. I mean, you can't break it down. It's like I took the liberty while we were talking about Jennifer Aniston of looking up how much the movie grossed. Right, so the budget was $10 million, and the movie grossed $10 million. Yeah. But
it built into this massive following afterwards.
True, but that's not the movie that's the movie that Mike Judge could make. Yeah, because he was coming off of Beavis and Butthead, right? Yeah, that's not the movie that you necessarily could make.
Oh, and there was also a different time.
Also a different time. But you can't say it's a different time every time we talk about a movie that wasn't last week.
Because there's a different time. Like our entire industry is so ridiculously different now.
It is ridiculously different because it's a different time.
Obviously it's a different time, sir.
But there are, we would be remiss if I didn't bring up this point, which is that we're really talking about two different types of screenplays here. There's the screenplay that gets bought, and then the screenplay that gets made. So, anybody who is an aspiring writer has to focus on the screenplay that gets bought, right? Which is very different from the one that gets made. So the corollary to that is there's the screenplay that doesn't get bought, but helps to launch your writing career, right? So if we really want to get reductive about it, most people, you've written a screenplay. What's your goal? Sell your screenplay or have a writing career, right? Probably having a writing career. Yeah, and selling the screenplay would be part of that, but it's not the exclusive part of it, right? So there's all sorts of radical ideas. I mean, I go into it in the book a bit, in the whole, the Smart Writer's Business Guide, where it's like you ideally want to write a movie that can get bought, right? So you got parts in there that it's like there's a somebody can read it and feel, oh, there's a star that's perfect for Brad Pitt, right? Or like you can see it and you can throw it in the description. Hey, think Brad Pitt, but is from Thelma and Louise days, or however you want to specifically say who this person is. But then the other side of it is is you might also want to write something so outrageous and so unproducible. I know it's a weird thing to hear me, who just described myself as a Hollywood hack, say that if you're trying to break in, write something wildly unproducible, but make it super memorable. I mean, I remember sitting with a producer and we were talking about this because I think the meeting was over. I said, hey, I've just written the book. I'm interested in your thoughts on some of these things. And, and he said, yeah, you write something unproducible. He goes, somebody gave me a script once about a dog who wanted to commit suicide, but his owners didn't understand that this dog was depressed and wanted to kill himself. So every time the dog tried to do something, like it was like, you're like grabbing the toaster and trying to jump into the bathtub with it, the owners would be like, "Oh boy, are you hungry? Let me get you some food." Like
it's brilliant.
That's right? Brilliant. It's brilliant. I promise you, if we have a conversation 20 years from now, and I hope we do because I'm enjoying speaking with you.
Yes.
So we have a conversation 20 years from now and say, "Hey, what was that unproducible movie I told you about?" You go, "Yeah, it's the dog who wanted to kill himself." I can't make that movie, but you don't. But it's you. I never knew the name of the writer. I'm sure the producer, wherever he is, can still tell you the name of the writer, or at least remembers the screenplay. So it makes you memorable. It helps launch your career. I'd love to find out who that was.
Oh my God, I would so watch that movie. Can you imagine if it was a Pixar? Imagine if it was a Pixar animation. Such joy. That would be joy.
So, yeah. So there is a certain aspect to the business about write something.
It's really a great idea of doing that. I've actually read scripts from screenwriters who then got deals because of it was basically a writing sample.
Exactly.
I read a script about it was a mashup between Alice in Wonderland and Sherlock Holmes. And it was this mashup, and I read the script. I'm like, this is completely unproducible, but it's very memorable, really good writing, tight.
Right.
An agent of mine gave it to me one day to read. I was like, "Oh, this is great. We can't make. No one's going to make this." And it was right before Sherlock Holmes got released and the TV show and all that stuff. So it was still a little early, but it's a little out there for the mainstream. But it's a great memorable piece. Now you do talk about one thing in your book that I wanted to bring up before we go is what is the unity of opposites?
The unity of opposites. I love the unity of opposites. It's my favorite thing in the whole world.
Yes.
It's this idea that and I didn't even invent it. I wish I did. But it's this principle that characters are connected at some thematic level, and they represent opposite sides of a moral or thematic argument. So it ties very cleanly into theme. I will go back to Star Wars, I guess. It's like if you imagine like a wheel, right? And you put Luke as the hero in the center of the wheel, right? The villain is actually not Darth Vader in that piece. It's really, Peter Cushing's character, because Vader works for him. So he's the big bad guy, right? So, and then you create these characters that go around Luke, right? So Luke and the villain, so the hero and the villain are connected on this thematic line. And for Star Wars, the theme is what's more powerful, faith or science, faith or technology, right? Because that's this whole thing. Shut off the targeting computer, Luke, right? He does and distract, right? So that's the theme, right? What's more powerful, faith or technology, right? Then you have the unity of opposites. So you have two, so you have 6 characters circling Luke, right? You have at the top, you have Obi-Wan and Darth Vader, right? They're connected because they're both old Jedis, they've trained together, they understand the power of the Force, right? But they're opposites, right? One's the dark and one's the light. So, and if you ask them what's more powerful, faith or technology, if you asked Obi-Wan what's more powerful, he'd say faith. If you ask Darth, he'll say, well, faith's really important, but technology is what's keeping me alive. And, the Death Star is this big ball of technology, not big ball of faith. And that's where he's currently working, right? So it's like, so he's representing technology. So Luke goes, oh, geez, I wonder what's more powerful, faith or technology? He understands from Darth and he understands from Obi-Wan. There are 2 perspectives, right? Mm-hmm. Then on the other, on this side of Luke, you have Princess Leia and you have Han Solo. So these are young, self-actualized people, right? So if you ask Leia what's more powerful, faith or technology, she'd go with faith, right? Trust, help us, Obi-Wan, you're our only hope, right? She has faith that, that people will do the right thing. You ask Han Solo what's more powerful, faith or technology, he's going to say technology. Hokey religions are no match for a blaster, kid, right? Faith and technology. Then at the bottom, you got the last 2 of your hero's main characters, and that's C-3PO and R2-D2, right? Now, both of them are big chunks of technology, right? But you ask C-3PO what's more important, what's more powerful, faith or technology, he'll tell you technology, right? He has no faith, right? Versus R2-D2, which, is going on missions and, he's got to help the princess, he's the best friend character, right? So the unity of opposites. So you have two robots, are connected. It's the unity, but they're opposites. You have the two self-actualized young people, older than Luke, but younger than Obi-Wan and Darth, opposites, but, there's a unity to them. And then you have Obi-Wan and Darth, opposites, but there's a unity to them. And it's all about the theme. So the thing I love, going back again to the question of, what are the mistakes? I say, in screenplays, the themes are muddy. You don't know what's your story really about. What's the argument? What's the thematic argument that the villain is making? What's the thematic question the hero is asking? What's the thematic synthesis? What does the hero learn about the theme by the end, right? So unity of opposites is a cool way of identifying your characters, but also tying it to the theme, which becomes super important.
Now I'm going to ask you a few questions I ask all of my guests. What advice would you give a screenwriter wanting to break into the business today?
Don't write a screenplay.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. TV. Write an original pilot. Don't write a spec episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm. Don't write a spec episode of 911, right? Because you're never gonna match what 911 has can afford the best writers in the business, and they all sit around together and they bounce ideas off each other and they distill out an idea. So you versus the entire writing of the room at 911, you're never going to write a script even close, right? And if you do, they're never going to buy it. And if they really are somehow impressed, maybe you get a job there, but you're not going to get a job elsewhere because it's 911. So if you don't get your 911 job, you got nothing, right? You write an original pilot, 1 hour drama, right? You write an original pilot. They have nothing to compare it to. So already, it's not like, well, it's not as good as our 911 script. It's not as good as our original pilot, but it's an original pilot. If it's really good, people will pay attention to it. You might accidentally sell the damn thing, right? Because if it's any good, and that's a solid writing sample, right? So and there's so much, so many more opportunities in television, and it keeps growing. I mean, number of original movies that get made. I mean, here, so go to Internet Movie Database right now, go to the homepage. Let's see, films in development, Thor, it's, sequel, Jurassic World 3, sequel, Fast and Furious 10, Reina and the Last Dragon. I don't know what that is. Oh, DreamWorks must be based on material.
Animation.
Animation. Bad Boys 4, sequel. Pre-production, Doctor Strange, Guardians of the Galaxy, Last Duel is an original. Shang-Chi, Legend of Something, Mission Impossible 7. It's like, in production, Minions, Suicide Squad, Batman, Matrix 4, Avatar 2.
They're all...
Yeah, right. This is all material you can never get your hands on, you can't get access to, but you come up with an original thing. Oh, my point was, movies are going for big tentpoles and just the budgets have gotten so big. But TV, you can come up with something kind of new and interesting and different. And get in.
Have a fighting chance. Have a fighting chance.
And you can actually, in TV writing, you actually have a trajectory. I can get in. I will start. My personal assistant on my last TV show, Stitchers, a guy named Matt Kane. He worked for a season as my personal assistant. He worked for 2 seasons as my personal assistant. Producer's assistant. Second season, I said, "Hey, you're a really good writer. Let's work on it. Why don't you write a script with me?" So I got him script writing on the second season. He worked with me. He just texted me last night that he's officially in development with Netflix on an original pilot that he wrote. Right? That's a trajectory, right? You have a TV. It's a trajectory. Film. It's a never-ending series of winning the lottery. right?
It's a really great way of putting it.
So TV is such a better business. And to be candid, I think the best writing is in television. It's not in films anymore, right? It's people who know these things have said that if you didn't, like, whatever that Metacritic kind of algorithm that you have to look at to say, oh, here's a good TV show by all objective standards, this is considered a quality television show. That there's so many of those shows that have crossed that threshold into being a quality show that there are no longer, for the first time in history, there aren't enough hours. If you did nothing, including sleeping, eating, and pooping, and you did nothing but watch quality television shows that are objectively considered quality, you couldn't watch them all, and more coming out every week.
Oh no, it's impossible.
Best writing is television. So you want to break into the business? Don't write screenplays. Write a 1 hour drama, original, not a spec. 911 or Game of Thrones.
Very, very great advice. What is the lesson that took you the longest to learn, whether in the film business or in life?
Wow. The lesson that took me the longest to learn is that I don't know everything. And I'm still learning that. Because I have a problem that I actually do think I know everything.
We are in the film business, so this does happen.
I can't possibly know everything, yet I still think I do. So I'm still grappling with that, and I know I don't know everything, and I'm being a little bit tongue in cheek, but it's I think to try to make me sound like less of a moron and more thoughtful about it. You create something brand new, right? A script, a pilot, whatever. You have to be willing to believe, I think, that nobody understands it the way you do, right? But you also have to be willing to think that people can help it. And the lesson is try to figure out, where do I get the help that I need versus how much do I hold on to what I think it is? And it's a particularly challenging bit of math if you become a showrunner, right? Because as a showrunner, you're responsible for everything. And I know we're talking about television again, but the idea is that as soon as you start making changes that you don't agree with, right? Just based on there's politics involved. It's studio notes, it's notes from your partners. But as soon as you start making changes that you don't feel, right, then you become useless to the entire endeavor, because you don't know, if you pitch me an idea for an episode of our show that we're working on, and I'm showrunner,
about the suicide dog by a suicidal dog.
Exactly, right. You pitch me an idea, I can react instinctively and go, I don't know, that's not sitting well with me. Wherever this pilot or this TV show came from, that idea is not living in that same space. I could try to elucidate it, or let's just reject it and come up with something else. So that's me thinking I know everything and rejecting help of good ideas coming in. So you have to be able to kind of parse that calculation. Is how much do you defend your material like it's your own child versus how much are you willing to look at it and go, yeah, my kid could use a little therapy.
Fair enough. And three of your
that's the hardest lesson, I think, for me personally.
And three of your favorite films of all time.
Ooh, they're favorites for all sorts of different reasons. Star Wars, because I saw it and said, oh my God, I was 17. It was like, it was just such a complete journey and trip. That was pretty amazing. 2001, because I saw it in my teens, and I was like, wow, that's, film can tell a bizarre, is it linear, non-linear?
It's Kubrick. It's just Kubrick.
Right. And then probably, for historical reasons, Citizen Kane, because it showed what you could do if you didn't listen to anybody, and you just ran with it, and then the movie almost killed him.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so.
But it's Citizen Kane. So some movies I like for like it because they really touched me. I mean, there's all sorts of movies, Forrest Gump, right?
Yeah, there's so many. All right, and then where can people find you, your work, and your book or books?
Book is on Amazon.
Okay.
And my story can beat up your story. I do have a poorly used website, which is mystorycanbeatupyourstory.com. But if we have a moment or two, I'll make a plug for a brand new venture that I'm involved in. Where I've started a company, and we put out our first product called Writers Room Pro, which is taking cards, corkboards, and the handwritten whiteboards that are commonly used in every writer's room, and saying this is nuts that this hasn't shifted over to a digital equivalent. I know why it hasn't, because the price of the big monitors used to be too expensive. It's not anymore. So the time is now right for writers' rooms to, like editing switched over from film and trim bins to Avid, and cameras switched over from film cameras to digital cameras. It's time for the writer's room to switch to a much more secure, much more robust solution. So that's the new venture. So it's check it out at the writersroompro.com. And it's really designed for professionals, but we have a lot of individual writers who are using the whole system. And it's not a story system, right? It's not. We're not trying to teach you. Here's how you do it. Here's how you plot out a television show. It's really it's just if you could put it up on a board with index cards, but you wanted to make it searchable, and you can output everything and import it into Word and Final Draft. And
stop it! And stop the madness! Stop the madness!
Stop the madness! Right. So that's the thing I'm kind of most excited about these days. As a corollary to my TV business. So writersroompro.com.
I'll put that all in the show notes. Jeff, thank you so much for being on the show. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you.